All right, so we're going to take the bass line for a ride. Here's a key for you. I'll give you a minute or two to just look this over. So we are going to sing on solfege, bass line. We're going to take it in chunks, so you can look over the whole thing if you want, but we're going to take it um, phrase by phrase, and the phrases are marked out there. So here's a key again for you. You can give it a practice read through. All right, let's take the first phrase to start. So you're going to see a G natural in there. So this flat seven, that's really the only challenge of this phrase, but I also want you to just take a look at the last two notes. So that descending fifth is pretty indicative coming at the end of the phrase of a cadence. So we actually begin this phrase in A and we end up cadencing in D by the end of it. That G natural then makes a lot more sense in that context, in that it's part of a predominant in D major. So let's just give that first phrase a run. I'm going to give you the first octave, and then when you get to the end of the first phrase, I'm going to plop you a D major triad, and we're going to see if we ended up on the same ray. So go in four on solfege. 1, 2, 3. So hopefully we're all on that same ray to end. Gonna do it one more time. This time I'll play with you. So I want you to really focus in on that G natural and make sure that it was tuned properly. So from the beginning, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Moving on, we're going to tack phrase 2 onto this. Now, we just went through the trouble of modulating to the subdominant, but with the beginning of phrase 2, we are right back in A major. And the challenge becomes making sure that you have a nice fifth there. It can be easy to sing that as a fourth, to go back to the D. So let's take both phrases together. If you fall apart right here, a good thing to hang on to is to know that this is your big cadential progression, right? Cadential 6, 4, 5 to 1. So if this interval doesn't work for you, just find your way back to the dominant on those E's. Okay. From the beginning to the end of the second phrase, and I'll hit you some helper notes and chords along the way. 1, 2, 3. Okay, how do we do? Thumbs up, down, middle? Okay, cool. Mostly middles. All right, I'll take it. Let's do those two phrases one more time. I'll help you out in kind of the more critical spot of the beginning of phrase 2. Here you go. 1, 2, 3. Okay. From here, we're going to add the third and fourth phrases all at once. So give yourself a minute to just look and read through that bottom system. So here's an A major for you again, and here's a starting pitch. All right, let's see how you do. So go back to the beginning and we'll go all the way to the double bar and see where we land. 1, 2, 3. So you'll notice that the cadential figure at the end of both of those systems is exactly the same. So again, if you get lost, that's a good kind of anchor to hang on to. Okay, let's take it one more time. Give yourself 30 seconds to look over that second system. The fourth phrase is the busiest one, right? But it's mostly stepwise, so you just have to make sure that your solfege is spinning properly. All right, I'll play with you this time, and we'll see how you go. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Hey, let's jump up to the tenor line. And we are going to not sing it, but I do want us to get a little practice with some solfege. So, tenor line is in tenor clef. And we are just going to speak the solfege in time. So give it a look. A couple things I want to talk about in terms of getting you comfortable in the clef, good strategies, all that kind of stuff. One thing to think about is this line is mostly stepwise. We've got some thirds and we've got some fourths. We do have one big leap, and it's right here. And a lot of times when you're getting comfortable with a new clef, leaps are the challenge, and you can sort of panic when you see one. However, no matter what clef you're in, an octave is still an octave. So whatever solfege you land on the downbeat here, you're going to say the same thing on beat 4 because it is just an octave leap. So give yourself a minute. Give that tenor line a look. And let's give it a go. So you're just speaking the solfege in time if it's going to help you to sing it, or if you're comfortable with tenor clef and you want to try and sing it. There's your key. I'll give you a starting solfege. So do is on the 4th line, so that means our top line, we're starting on mi. And thinking about kind of strategies as well, we get to this cadence here. This is a cadence in 1. This is a cadence in 1. We're in A major, so if we're cadencing on tonic in those spots, that means it's some flavor of an A major triad, yeah? So you should be saying La, Do, or Mi in those moments. So use those to help you out. A little knowledge of the harmony will go a long way. Okay, so here's your key if you want to sing. If you're just going to speak, we're going to start on Mi. 1, 2, 3. Mi, mi. La, sol. Do, ti, la. Mi. Mi, mi, re, do. Sol, la, re. La, 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 sol, mi. All right, how did we do? Good, all right. Awesome, I'm seeing way more thumbs up than I have today thus far. Cool. All right, so if you do have your course pack, either in physical form or as a PDF, there are a bunch of these chorales in there, and the tenor part is conveniently in tenor clef. So if you're looking for some extra clef practice, that's always a great resource for you. All right, so let's take a look at what we got on tap for today. Most of our day is going to be spent listening to some actual real life music, aka not something I put in Sibelius, that goes from tonic to some sort of mediant. So we're going to take a listen to 2 different pieces. I'm guessing the first tune is familiar to at least some of you. So we're going to take a listen to that, and we're listening to this big ABA right now. So your A section is going to be in one key, your B section is in another key, and then we're going to return to the A. All I want to know is mode. So is your A section major or minor? Is your B section major or minor? I have spent my lunch break playing around with the sound because my 10 o'clock class said they couldn't hear this very well. My 9 o'clock class said nothing, so either they could hear it fine or they couldn't and they just didn't tell me. So hopefully you can hear this okay. We'll give it a go. Here you go.
Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebirds singing a song, nothing but bluebirds all day long.
Here's a B section.
Never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right, noticing the days hurrying by. When you're in love, my how they fly. Blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on.
Okay, so I'll give you one more listen in case you were unsure, and then we will talk. Here it is from the top.
Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebirds singing a song, nothing but bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right, noticing the days hurrying by. When you're in love, my how they fly. Blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on.
All right, so we have an A section. Major or minor? Thumbs up for major, down for minor. Good, 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 good. About half and half, but yeah. So opening is actually in a minor key. And we outline that. So it's an A minor. 1, 5. Then our B section, major or minor. Yeah, so some of you are now unsure because you didn't get the first part right. The B section is in major. And we get to this by a really, really direct modulation. And by direct, I mean we just plunk onto this natural 7 harmony, throw a 7th on it, and that's just how we get there. So we're in A minor, and then we just G7 to C, and there we are. So really quick direct modulation. Okay, now in contrast to that piece, my guess is this other one is going to be new to most of you. We are going to listen to this nifty little polka, and I want you to do the same thing that you just did. It is not an ABA form. We've got a little introduction, and then it's a big parallel period. The antecedent doesn't go anywhere harmonically in terms of key area, and the consequent modulates. So I need to know, do we begin in major or minor? And when we get to the cadence at the end of the consequent, are we in major or are we in minor? So let's give it a listen. And it does repeat, so you get 2 passes through it. This is the intro. Antecedent. Consequent. Repeat. Consequent. All right. Let's take one more listen to it. If you think you know the scheme, go ahead and jot it down. Otherwise, we'll take one more pass and then we'll talk. Introduction. Antecedent. Consequent. Consequent. All right, so I think this one actually is a little easier in terms of modulation scheme. Do we begin in major or minor? Major, yeah. And that consequent modulates to a new key. Was that new key major or minor? Minor, good. So this is in essence kind of the opposite of what we did in Blue Skies. We start in major, we move to the minor 3. So this one begins in D major. We move to F sharp minor, and it is a pivot chord modulation, but I want to look at it a little more closely, and we're going to do a little bit of singing with it. So this is a piano reduction of the score. So your antecedent begins here. This is your little introduction on the very top system. Your antecedent begins clearly D major. Your consequent begins here. And if we're moving to F sharp minor, we've got 2 pitches that are going to change to make that new key area happen. But the really, really important one is that we're going to need a new leading tone. So if you're thinking F sharp minor, who is my leading tone? that's going to be E sharp. And that's a really good place to start in terms of like eyeballing the score and trying to figure out where we start pushing into F sharp minor. So our consequent begins exactly like the antecedent did. And right here is where we get our first instance of the E sharp. Now I talked to a bunch of people after classes on Thursday and via email about this idea of finding the pivot chord without a score. So aurally locating a pivot chord. How do we do that? What's the best practice? And generally what I tell people is you listen for the chord that sounds weird. And by weird, I mean chromatic. So you listen for the chromatic chord, and then you back yourself up one chord. If you remember in Theory 2, when we first started learning modulations to the dominant, what we generally said was look for the sharp 4 chord. That's likely a 5, or maybe a 7, 5. But you look for the sharp 4 chord, then you go back a chord, and that is your pivot, because you want your pivot to, in these instances, be diatonic in both keys. So you want a pivot chord that operates in both keys. And then the surprise comes when it's reinterpreted in the new key and you get that chromatic chord that says, oh, we've gone somewhere new. So with that in mind then, we're going to back up one chord from the chord with the E sharp in it to find our pivot. So if you look really quickly then at this harmony, we've got a nice D major triad. In our home key, our beginning key of D, that's an easy label. It's just a 1. If we're going to F sharp minor, then that D major triad gets a new label as our 6th chord. And then from there, once we get that E sharp and the C sharp major triad, we are officially in F sharp minor. We even close out with a nice predominant, dominant, and tonic in our new key. Now what I'd like to do with this, we're going to actually sing along to the recording. You don't have to sing the entire melody, but we're going to sing a little bit of a kind of reduction of it. And we're going to sing on scale degrees. So as the recording starts, you're going to sing 3, and we're just going to follow this melody upwards. So we go from 3 to 5. This is a bit interesting. Then we go to 7, and that 7 in this instance is part of a 7 half diminished 7 chord. And I'll explain why that becomes more important in a second. 7 steps down to 6. That's our antecedent phrase. We start the consequent the same exact way. We go from 3 to 5, and then I'm actually going to have you split that 5 up. You're going to sing 5 for a measure, and then you are actually going to change it to 3. So same note, you're just going to change what you call it. So you're going to sing it as 5, and then you're going to turn around the next measure, sing the same note, but call it 3. Then when you get to this C sharp, now it's no longer 7, now it's 5. 5 steps down to 4, and then you get a 2, 3, 1 to cadence at the end. So let's give this a try. We're going to sing along to the recording, and I'll plunk the notes for you as you're listening to. The recording repeats, so if you have a disaster the first time through, you get an automatic second try with the repeat. So let's give it a go and see how you do. You get the intro to just chill and get in the key. Back to 3, 5, 3. why did I have you do that? I wanted you to kind of be in the mix as the modulation was happening. So by changing what you call that A, calling it 5, and then calling it 3, but within the same harmony. So the harmony never changed, right? You were singing, you were calling this 5, and then in the next bar, you were calling this 3. The harmony never changed, but you just reoriented the role of the harmony kind of in real time. That's exactly what we're going to do when we sing these chord progressions that we listened to on Thursday. We're going to take one of them now, and we're actually going to try singing it. So I'm going to bring us over to some staff paper, and you are welcome to jot this down or not. If you're like me and you have to physically write down anything to make it stick in your brain, then feel free to write this down, but you are under no obligation to do whatever makes your learning most effective. I'm going to put us in D major. And we are going to sing through a progression that does the same exact thing that the polka actually just did. We are going to end up in F sharp minor. This is one of the progressions from class on Thursday. So I'm going to play it for you once or twice just to remind you of it. If I recall correctly, this class did absolutely fine with coming up with the modulation schemes. This is a nice short one, so give it a listen. I'll play it again for you, and whatever system works for you right now. If putting it on staff paper is the best way for you to navigate this, go to town. If scale degrees are more helpful for you, then you can do that. Whatever works for you, but end game goal is I would like a baseline in a couple more lessons. And since you guys are by yourselves, you're not in a classroom with other bodies, you're very welcome to sing along with this while you're working it out. You're not going to disturb anyone. That is one of the very few perks of teaching in this manner. So feel free to hum or sing along. Here it is again. I'm going to give you some starting and ending spots. So we end in F sharp minor. We approach it just with a big fat dominant. So all I got to work out is the bass line in the very beginning. So here it is one more time. Now that opening is something that you probably sang like ad nauseum in skills 2, potentially even in skills 1. It's just a big tonic prolongation. So I did not ask for Roman numerals, so don't panic when I put them up here. You did not have to come up with them. So we've got 1, this tonic prolongation, so 1 to 1/6, and we just stitch it together with an inverted dominant, right? In this case, scale degree 2 gives us a 5/4/3. And we already know that we've got 5 to 1 in our new key here. So that means that this guy that I have yet to fill in is actually also our pivot chord. So generally I tend to work these progressions from the outsides in, and I think a lot of students do the same. We tend to grab the beginning, we grab the end, and the middle is the last thing we kind of work out. In terms of modulating progressions, that's also where all the magic happens. So If you haven't gotten that fourth bass note yet, I want you to just listen one more time and just focus on how we approach the new dominant. So how do we get to this C sharp? Do we get to it from above or do we get to it from below? So here's one last listen and then we will check. So if you were able to hone in on that after we got through our tonic prolongation, we approach that new dominant by step from below. So that gives us a B in the bass. And again, this is our pivot chord. So I'm going to throw its labels on here. It was in root position, so easy peasy in terms of that. So now what I'd like to do in the next like 3 minutes, because we're going a smidge over, and all my classes did today, sorry. We're going to sing the bass line first on numbers, but I would like you to sing the pivot chord twice. So you're going to sing the bass line. When you get to that B, first you're going to call it 6, and then you're going to call it 4. So you're going to sing it twice, just like we sang 2 different numbers for the melody in the polka. So you'll sing your pivot chord twice, but bass line only for right now. On half notes, please. Ready, and. Now change it to 4. Okay, now we're going to build this up and we're actually going to arpeggiate. And again, I'm going to have you sing the pivot chord twice, and I will explain why in a second. This is the only time that I can think of that I will write the numbers out for you. It's our first progression together, so I'm being unusually magnanimous. Okay. Now, the reason I want you to sing that pivot chord twice is I want you to actually feel and give your brain and your ears time to say, okay, that's a 6, but then I'm going to sing it again as a 4, so that when I get to this dominant, I'm more confident in that pitch. I'm more confident that I could build a proper dominant quality chord, because if any note is going to just kind of flop in this progression, it's going to be this one. So by singing that pivot chord twice, it forces you to explicitly reinterpret it as its new role as the 4 chord in your new key. So can we go bass line one more time just to drill it in, and then we'll arpeggiate. So bass line, repeating the pivot chord on half notes, please. Ready, and. Four. Okay, now let's arpeggiate. Quick kind of ground rules for the way I like to run arpeggiations. They're going to be in 3, and in order to keep the whole thing in 3, that means your 7th chords are going to have to be triplets. So all I mean by that, so your 7th chords are going to spin by a little faster than perhaps you would like them. We're going to go slower than that though, so don't panic. Okay, let's see how we go. And I will play bits and pieces with you. 1 and 2 and 3. becomes a 4. Okay. I gave you a fair amount of help though. But I'm still curious. Thumbs up, down, middle. How did that feel? Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, I will take that. So now that we've sort of gotten ourselves situated with the semester and everything, we'll be attending to these progressions a lot more. I put this offer out to my earlier classes, and I got enough responses back in the affirmative that I will be putting up some practice materials for chord progressions in the next couple of days. So expect a file in Google to pop up for you guys. It'll have some like arpeggiated out Sibelius files and some that just have bass lines, and a worksheet to go with them to show you the harmonic progressions and things, just to give you extra practice outside of class, because this is a tough thing to practice on your own. Last thing I'm going to say is friendly neighborhood reminder, your Unit 1 stuff is due on the 20th, which is next Sunday. So be thinking about feeding those videos to me if you anticipate maybe wanting some revision time on them. So ideally, I would have 1 or 2 of them by this weekend. But if you got questions or want extra practice, please stop by office hours. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Thursday. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.